Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I would like to thank the ISSA Raleigh Chapter Committee for giving me the opportunity to be here today, where I actually came down from New York, so it's not that far. But before that, I came in from Tel Aviv. I do that trip once in a while, so for me it's a thing that's already part of my professional life. Being an Israeli entrepreneur, coming out here to the U.S., it's back to basics. Okay, so this is what you need to do if you want to be if you want to do something meaningful. But we'll go back to describe a little bit about myself and what I do. But I would like to take the opportunity today and to speak a little bit about this topic here, which I'm not sure how well it lands in this crowd, how well it resonates with you. Speaking about multiple security frameworks that many companies out there have the need to implement, to maintain, to track, to monitor, and to report to auditors, to regulators, to internal teams in the company. We in Saipago, we see that a lot, and I will talk about it later on. So that's an effort that, as we've seen, and again, we'll touch upon it in a minute or two, that has been bothering a lot of organizations lately, due to the fact that the challenges are increasing. There's so many data out there, so many vulnerabilities, so many challenges, and the fact is that we do have so many different standards, and that wise man once said that the nice thing about standards that you have so many of them, and you have standards for almost everything. And now that you have to implement multiple standards at once, that becomes a challenge, because now you have different types of controls, different types of requirements, and we'll describe all that. So this is in general what I would like to talk about today. And of course, my purpose is to try and keep it as informal as possible. Okay, it's not like a lecture. It's more of, I'll be happy that it will be more of a discussion. So feel free, okay, to interrupt, to ask, to comment, to throw something at the stage. Okay, I'm here for that. Not bottles, please. Not bottles, yeah. So this is a little bit about me. I've been around, as you can tell by my gray hair. I've been spending some time with the Israeli government, with the intelligence corps. I've been as a senior developer or a team leader with Nice Systems, with a startup company that was later acquired by Thomson Reuters. I'm now an expert member with Special Working Group 5 within the ISO institution. As part of our role, we're issuing the ISO 27001 and actually the 27XXX standards. And I was CTO for E&Y Cybersecurity Center. Back then I was based in Tel Aviv, but all of my projects or customers were here in the US. And I shamefully admit that I still hold Windows 95 MCP certification. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but I have it framed in my office. Just to remind myself how things looked back in, when was it? Like early 2000s or even earlier than that, how things back then looked super complicated, super complex. And nowadays, when you have Kubernetes and ChatGPT and everything, that looks like an not funny joke, but it is. And of course, just to mention that, today I'm the CEO and co-founder at Saipago. Saipago is a startup company based in Tel Aviv, but already with a significant presence here in the US. And we help our customers automate their security and compliance needs, everything that involves governance, risk, and compliance, based on a SaaS platform that runs both in the cloud and on premises and can really move the needle. And maybe you'll see some things here that resonates with what we do, but the focus in this session tonight is to talk a little bit about this challenge and what this challenge exactly is. I'm sure that you have seen a lot of numbers flowing around from many directions. I just pick a few. So a lot of people say that when they have the need in implementing multiple frameworks, it quickly becomes a significant or at least moderate challenge. And that immediately translates into the fact that many organizations out there are expecting to spend a lot more time, a lot more money, all in all, a lot more resources in order to maintain compliance, risk, and overall to make sure that they are aligned with their, let's say, business expectations. Because at the end of the day, we have, as we all know, we have cybersecurity, or let's say in general information security challenges. Compliance or risk management doesn't equal information security. If you have a proper set of frameworks or standards or regulations that you adhere to, that doesn't mean that your organization is now fully secure. It does mean that you are aligned with your business requirements. And if you have, I don't know, multiple product lines that you need to, that the company, the organization wants to sell into different types of sectors, or you're in a sector that is heavily regulated, it doesn't really matter what vulnerabilities you're going to patch. What counts is that the organization, through yourself or the other security function that you have in the company, can tell your boss or the board, listen, we are compliant. We are whatever it is, NIST compliant, SOC 2 compliant, ISO compliant, you name it. Last time I checked, there were over 250 different types of information security related standards and frameworks globally. And that number grows on a very nice pace. So this is the story. I mean, this is the reality that we pretty much all face. Now, I would like to take you through a real life example. Of course, I omitted the company name, but that's a real company, actually one of our customers. And I would like, through this example, to go into a little bit more details that will help us to better understand what the challenge is. And then we'll go through several, I would say, let's call them tips on how to better manage these kind of realities. So this is the company. It's a financial service company with a, let's say, a reasonable size. It's not a huge enterprise, only about 500 employees, below 1 billion in revenue, but it's already publicly traded, and it has multiple products. Means that it delivers or creates or servicing multiple products. And as you can see here to the right, there are multiple frameworks and regulations that this company needs to adhere to. So you already have a very nice, I don't know if nice is the right word, a matrix of requirements, because you have multiple frameworks, multiple requirements, you have multiple product lines that you need to make sure that they all comply with these requirements. And of course, you have at least 500 security vulnerabilities in the company. Yeah, as we all know, people are the weakest link, and that quickly became something that many security leaders understand and take a lot of, let's say, putting most of their attention into. But we can touch upon that maybe in another occasion. So anyway, again, as I said, this is a real life example. So this kind of company, what can it do? What should it do in order to save on the overall, let's say, expenses? Because yes, we can take these, in this example, these 5 types of frameworks. Of course, that can easily be 10 or 15, and that's, I mean, these are cases that we see. But you can take these 5, you can build out 5 different teams of people and bring in, I don't know, a list of technologies, and then spend hours over hours to collect the data and do all the things that we'll cover in a second. And eventually you will have compliance. But that's inefficient, and that's even non-realistic, because no one will recruit 5 different teams, and no one has the money or the time needed in order to go through all that and make it all happen. So it's clearly understood that that has to be efficient. Now the question is, what are the bottlenecks and how we can make it efficient? So I just went into, or picked one very specific example. Sorry for that being a little bit technical for that time of day and almost weekend coming in, but just to be served as a talking point. So you can imagine from the previous frameworks that we've seen, each of those has at least 100 different controls, at least. The here in the middle, that's the NYCRR, one of the financial requirements made by the New York State. So this has, I think, a couple of hundred, or maybe a little bit more than that. The SOC 2 has, grosso modo, I think something like 150, and so on and so forth. So this is just one example for one specific requirement. And I picked here several known or relatively known frameworks. I don't know how many here in the crowd have been handling one of these frameworks or regulations. They're known, right? It's not something that you've seen for the first time. And that serves as a good example for what I was just describing. So a question that, or let's say a control that you might find, again, in different types of languages, will require you to have, or it asks whether you have enabled multi-factor authentication for user access. And we all know multi-factor can be called multi-factor or two-factor authentication, or nothing. Okay. Yeah, it seems like I won't breathe in that direction. But anyway, so this is the requirement. As you can see, it's been found in different types of frameworks, in different sections, and in different languages, and in, let's say, in different levels of complexities. Because, okay, the CSA has a full domain, an entire domain that describes user access. But HIPAA, as you can see over there, has a very, very, very specific way to describe this concrete requirement around multi-factor authentication. PCI and SOC 2, actually PCI has 5 or 6 different types of controls that they all refer to the same requirement. SOC 2 has 2, and I could have continued this specific table with at least 5 or more or 6 more columns there. I think, but the point is clear. So we have one requirement. Now multiply that by 100 or 200, and you'll get a spreadsheet that it's almost impossible to manage. Now I'm sure that some of you or many of you have seen these kind of Excel sheets, right? I mean, they've been circulating. People are sending them from one to another just for the sake of laughing at them and trying to just open these spreadsheets and figure out how to read them. These are impossible to read. Although many smart people have put in a lot of efforts into building them out and being able to actually map each of these requirements. But the other people, the ones that created these frameworks, they didn't think about it. I mean, they didn't want to begin with. They didn't try to come out with a framework that will be easily mapped. Because as we can see here, there are different structures. One has a domain, it's like a chapter, and the other has a very specific requirement. So it's very easy, very difficult to do that mapping. So we have multiple frameworks, we have multiple product lines, we have multiple controls, and we have all this mapping challenge. So how we can make it all happen in an effective manner, in a manner that will be both saving on time, on resources, and effective in a way that a company will actually have a way to understand what's going on right now. If someone comes in, someone from management comes in and asks the relevant security function if you can please share with me what's the status of the company regarding these specific frameworks, how easy it would be to generate a report or to share our current, let's say, compliance posture. So I've gathered, I think it's five tips or ideas that I think that we can all use in order to make it a little bit easier. There are many more. It's not just five. I took only five just to keep this session shorter and to give you the incentive to approach me after that. But I think that these five are representative. So let's start with the first one. We all want to work smarter, of course. First thing first, we need to find the right way to map these controls. So the most important thing would be to identify these critical frameworks, the ones that are not optional, the ones that are, if we are, let's say, if we operate in a regulated environment, so what are these regulations, the ones that we just cannot do without them? So we'll start with them. Then we want to be able to somehow or leverage these spreadsheets that we've mentioned or other means to map the most important controls from one framework to another. Why? Because we want to make sure that we have the list of the most critical things that we need to, or let's say, most critical tasks that we want to implement. And then we want to document whatever we do. That means that if we have done, if we have checked one of these controls, we have implemented that, we want to mark it down. Why? Because if we've done that for one framework and we already mapped it to another one, so we want to know, at least know that that control has already been implemented. It may sound highly manual for you guys. It is manual because this is the way that you need to think about it. We'll get to, I think it's going to be number 5, that's going to describe how that can be or even should be done in an automated fashion. But this is the thought process. So this is the first point. The second, and that's I think one of the key type of activities that I highly recommend for every company. And again, that doesn't really matter if you do that automatically or not, but that's super important. Many of these frameworks, all of these frameworks and all of these controls require you to provide evidence, to collect evidence, to analyze it, to be served as a basis to claim that something has been properly implemented. But once you have multiple controls from multiple frameworks asking you to do the same, you don't want to go about and collect these evidence twice or 3 times or 10 times and do the analysis that amount of time, because that's going to spend a lot of time, a lot of resources, and people are going to be mad. Because if you're working with your IT or your DevOps or you name it, you don't want to ask them on Monday for a specific list of users and then on Thursday to ask the same thing. And that's what will happen if we will not try to leverage or reuse the evidence. So I call it here, collect once, use many. And this is the way. So we have the list of controls from the previous slide. We want to maintain as much as we can a centralized repository for all the evidence to be accessible by the relevant stakeholders. We want to be able to map them back. So we have gathered the evidence, so we want to find a way to map it back to the controls that we already have. In some cases, again, following that thought process, that can be implemented, relatively easily implemented through, let's say that you're leveraging Google Cloud or Google Drive. So we'll have a list of folders within your Google Drive. Each folder will have the name of the control, and maybe you'll have a subfolders to describe, I don't know, the other controls that have been mapped to the same control. So that's a fairly easy, again, manual way. But again, the thought process here, this is the important stuff. So once we have that centralized repository and we do that remapping to the controls, a good practice would be to review it on a regular basis to see that we have been accumulating evidence and that evidence has been maintained properly. Why? Because at the end of the day or at the end of the period, we'll have to report it back to either the internal audit team, the external auditor, whatever the party, the external party that would be, and they will ask us for this evidence. So we need that to be handy. The third tip here is to be able to be on top of things, I would call it, and to get that in-depth visibility that we need. And in this case, visibility means that we need to really understand what we have under our hands. So first, it's most important to create or to build a list or be able to come up with an inventory of all our assets. I called it here cyber assets. It's not my term. It's been used in the industry lately. That means, well, I mean, what a cyber asset is. We know what IT asset is, what a cyber asset is. So the difference there is every type of asset, I would call it digital asset, that can be served or can be used as an attack surface. Okay? The good news is that most of them are digital assets that we can actually collect and have visibility into. The bad news are that there are so many of those, and they keep multiplying. And we have almost every piece of data that we hold, almost, can be served today as a possible or potential attack vector. But anyway, being able to have this cyber asset inventory, that's key. Now we wanna be able to have the part of being able to get that visibility is to create a team, and in most cases that going to be a cross-functional team. Why? Because many different people from different departments and divisions will collaborate. We want them to collaborate, although it's always difficult, it's always a challenge, but that's one of the key success factors for being able to have security in place, but more specifically to have that multi-framework in place. Because again, as we mentioned just a minute ago, if you have people from IT or DevOps or HR or, again, administration, it really spans different types of functions within the organization. You want to bring them all together because they need to know that we have different types of frameworks that we need to implement, and now we need to work on all that together. And once we have this visibility, we want to monitor that. We want to make sure that whatever we know on Monday is true by the end of the week and the week after that. So we will be able to report on that once someone comes in and asks for that. Or better yet, we will have our own visibility into what's going on. So we will, ideally, at the press of a button, we'll be able to understand what's our current overall security and compliance posture.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
You alluded to the fact that cyber asset inventory can be different than IT asset inventory. I'm still kind of trying to observe the difference.
So it's not necessarily different, but it's a term that people are starting using to make it clearer that we're talking about type of assets that can be used against you, in a way.
Yeah, but
okay.
Almost every IT asset.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
Kind of becomes your.
I agree. It's almost the same as people are calling security compliance IT compliance. For example, there's an overlap there. I agree. But IT is kind of the I don't know how to call it, the general way to put it to describe an asset. A cyber asset means something that you can actually use as an attack vector. But in essence, I agree.
Actually quantify the
Sorry.
IT asset and kind of come back and say, these are the cyber attack vectors that are associated with this. Would that kind of quantify it better?
I think that you're right. But let's say that you have this kind of inventory, when you will open it, what you will see there are the type of assets that you know. Okay, users, devices, but more so you will see, for example, a list of your database backups. Okay, that's a purely IT asset, but as we all know today, that's one way to contaminate, let's say, a company's data records. So that's, again, that's the way to think about it. You want to ask something?
Well, it was just going the way I took it was that it was like include both the traditional informational technology plus other attack surfaces like operational technology, anything that interacts with your IT infrastructure would be a cyber asset.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's more to cyber than the asset that we've been used to think of. I agree. So this is what we have to say around the ability or the importance of getting this this kind of in-depth visibility. Now, the fourth point that I wanted to discuss is, and it may sound simple, but it's very, very important. Again, when we have multiple frameworks, multiple standards and regulations, we are facing multiple audits across the year. I mean, all throughout the year, we'll find ourselves getting ready for an audit. That can be on a quarterly basis, or on a whatever basis that the auditor wants to have it. So first thing, or the most important thing, is to plan for that. Don't let it surprise you. Plan ahead. Put it on the calendar. Make sure that everybody, that cross-functional team that we've discussed, knows about it, and puts it in their own calendars as well. And you want to know it as early as possible. Why? One of the good reasons to be ready for that in advance is that in some cases, when an auditor will come in, he or she will ask you to present evidence not only from today, but from the previous week or the previous quarter. So if you know that you're going to have an audit coming up in 2 quarters from today, you want to start collecting or preparing evidence starting today and not like in 6 months from now. So that's, again, may sound obvious, but many of us not necessarily follow that principle. So we have these key dates, and now we can assign specific responsibilities. And again, when we have this cross-functional team, we have different people coming in, not necessarily from security or IT or that people that are strictly related to these kind of activities, but still we have to maintain this open communication channel. So we want to assign specific responsibilities to all the relevant stakeholders. And once we have that, and we have the schedule, we have the audit, the annual, let's say, audit schedule in place. Now we can have these regular check-ins with the team, with the specific team, with the broader team, maybe on a more relaxed schedule, but still that's something that you need to have in place in order to make sure that everybody are working their way, let's say, towards the relevant audits. Now, point 5 here, having these pre-audits sessions, in some cases, again, it's mandatory. You have to have an internal audit before you are ready for something else. But I must say, based on my humble experience, I think that's a very important practice to have in every organization, no matter what type of let's say, security program you have in place. Having these kind of drills once in a while, and again, it changes. It can be once a quarter, twice a year. It really depends on the size and the complexity of your existing overall, let's say, infrastructures. But having these kind of drills on a regular basis is super important, because once you're saying to the entire team, listen, we're getting ready to an audit. This is what we're going to do. This is the type of data. These are the controls we want to make sure that are implemented and all that. This is the only chance that you will have to actually see if everything has been properly implemented, yes or no. This is pretty much the same as you have with with fire drills. Until you have it, you don't really know if you have the right access to the stairs or if the elevator will continue operating. That's the same idea. And of course, as it's true for any of these topics that we've discussed, we want to make sure that we keep record for everything that we do. Okay, why? Because we want to know what we have done, what worked, what didn't work. Maybe we tried to fetch a specific list of, assets, but we couldn't do that because we didn't have the access to the right system, or the data was all mixed up, or we didn't have the right expertise in place to analyze the data to let us know if we have done what's required or not. Or maybe the technical setup was a little bit too complex. Just as a simple example, we have touched upon the multi-factor authentication. So many of you probably know that many tools, many SaaS-based and other type of tools today support multi-factor authentication, of course. But when you work with an SSO, with a single sign-on, or a different type of IDP, they will take care of the multi-factor authentication instead of the actual application that they are using. And now, if you will be fetching for the application's settings, and you will see that no multi-factor authentication is being enforced. So you might come to the wrong conclusion that something is wrong, although it's being taken care of by the IDP, by the SSO provider. So that's just a simple example for that. Why it's very important to keep a record and to keep track on all the type of activities that we had in order to make sure that we have done the relevant effort. So the last point that I wanted to discuss, and we want to try and make things as short as possible. As I mentioned, there are multiple other recommendations that I think that we can make and are important. But I wanted to bring up this one as well. Again, I think that it's not new. Moving or switching over, let's say, from manual to automated, it's not a new concept. We've all done that in different types of, let's say, aspects of our professional and even personal lives. It's great. And I can say, in general, it works. It works. Manual is great. We all know how things are going and what's expected. But once we are actually able to automate things, our lives become better. However, it's a challenge. It's always a challenge to switch over to automation, no matter, again, in what area, specifically in cybersecurity, and even more so around security and compliance. Why? Because we are responsible for what the company is doing, and to make sure that company is compliant. And let's assume that we had a process in place, a manual process in place, but now we trust it. We know that it's going to work. We can even assess, in a fairly good manner, how much time it will take us. Now, when we bring in an automation tool of some sort, that's an unknown. So I'm just saying that because I know that that's been a challenge for many companies. But still, when you bring in and when you are able or you're open up to bringing in an automation capability, I think the most important thing is to identify the key areas that which you wanna automate. We're not going to automate everything, and I'm not sure that it's even possible. But in this context, security and compliance, we wanna be able to hone in on a specific area. For example, evidence collection or evidence analysis. That would be the easiest areas to automate, although it's not easy at all, but it's a confined area. We can define it. There's an input, there's an output. We can know what to expect. But that's just one example. Many other types, let's say reporting, that's another aspect that you can fairly easily automate with the right technology. So that's the first point. So we are using some kind of automation tools to streamline our activities. And we're automating our evidence collection, for example. By the way, when we say evidence collection, it's a very simple term, but it's relevant for many different types of activities. Okay, because evidence can be a user list, okay, which is, let's say, fairly simple to fetch, but an evidence can also be a process. So how can I prove that a company follows a specific process? Let's say employee onboarding or offboarding, for example. So that's a process. That's not something that we can fetch. How do I prove that? How do I collect evidence around that? How do I prove that all the employees go through security awareness trainings on a regular cadence, as another example, etc. So we say evidence collection, but it's a topic, it's a something, it's a thing that we need to find the right way, again, to automate, and that's really based on the technology that we use. Now, once we have automation in place, that's great, but we need something else to keep track of the automation and make sure that it works as expected and that it provides, I would call it now, ROI, or in some way it's been as effective as we wanted it to be, okay? Because if we recall one of the previous slides that we've discussed, that real-life example, that company with that 500 employees and all that, they've been investing a lot of resources into the into their compliance processes, and when they bring in an automation tool, they expect to see how effective it is. So they don't want to, of course, let's say, get rid of people, but they want to make sure that the team of 3 or 4 or 5 that they have in place now can do much more, or they have the time to go into research, to go into activities that they didn't have got time to do before. So this is the effectiveness. This is exactly where you can measure very accurately the effectiveness of these kind of tools. You also want to make sure that people are trained on that, so they know what to expect. They know how to operate this new toy, this new machine, and it's a machine. I mean, it's something that you need to know how to operate, and again, to know what to expect from. And of course, and we all do that almost without any external incentive, let's say. But it's even more important when we're dealing with these kind of tools. We want to keep up with the latest, okay, in this area, because there's so many things to automate, and so many ways, let's say, so many different types of technologies. Everybody are talking about ChatGPT and all that. That's kind of automation for knowledge, let's say. Yeah.
Do you have any specific tool sets or tools that you've used or leveraged to help do this automation?
The answer is yes. I will say that this is some of the things that we as a company provide, but just not to turn it into a sales pitch. There are so many different ways to automate, from using scripts, okay, to let's say output the list of permissions for a specific asset, for a specific folder, to other tools that you have if you're leveraging let's say cloud platforms. So they will offer some kind of some level of automation already built in their platforms as well, etc. So there are multiple ways to automate. This is why I'm saying that for me, it's most important first to identify these areas that you would like to automate, and then based on that, it will be much easier to find the right tools that will actually provide the effectiveness that you're looking for.
I'm in this field a little bit here, but I haven't seen a single compliance tool. I've heard exactly the same thing. It's a hodgepodge of tool sets. Then you have to kind of like glue them all together to make them work. But I didn't know if there was something out there that you knew.
So again, I can humbly say that when you have the right tool, even I would call it even a platform, and this is goes exactly to your point, that Nowadays, you have to take multiple types of tools and somehow glue them together. But when you have the right platform in place that operates as a platform, so it's very easy to put in these or to activate these additional capabilities, this is where you really get the value out of automation tools. And I'll be more than happy to expand on that later on. Okay, so these were the 5 main, let's say, tips for today regarding how to go and implement multiple frameworks in a complex environment in which we have a lot of different or apparently different types of requirements in place, but essentially at the end of the day, many of them overlap. And as a key takeaway, I just wanted you to see these three terms because I think that they, in a way, they describe the let's say the expanse of challenges that we've described here today. We want to be able to, when we have these multiple frameworks, to be as efficient as possible. We all want to do more with less. I mean, it's a dream, but again, leveraging the right processes and the right tools, that's achievable. We want to have this visibility in place, and visibility is not just to see the numbers or a nice graph, which is important by itself, but to have kind of an actionable insight, because we want to understand what do I need to do now? Okay, so I see a nice graph. There has been an increase or a decrease in the number of open controls, or I have a specific risks that I need to somehow solve, but I need it to be actionable. I need it to be in context. So I think that's the second thing that we can take away from this session today. And even more importantly, the ability to actually enforce, because many of us have a lot of shiny policies in place. We, again, put in a lot of efforts from top management down to make sure that these policies are approved, that everybody in the company knows about these policies, but question is, how many follow them? Okay, and that's a question that we're not always asked because we are afraid of the answer. But I do believe that having these 2 pillars in place will enable enforcement, will make enforcement a little bit easier. It's never like a press of a button, but it will become easier once you have this visibility. Once you are able to do things in an efficient manner, you can actually make sure that everything that you have in place, all your security program, all your compliance-related controls have been not just implemented within the security department, but the company as a company, the organization as a whole, actually follows them. So that was most of the issues and things that I wanted to share with you tonight. But I cannot leave this stage without referring to something that I saw that was already mentioned at the entrance there, because we're in a very special day today. And believe me that I prepared this slide before I came in today. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and judging by the crowd here, I believe that there are at least some additional fans here as well. That's a very special day. I do wish you all that the fourth or the other fourth will be with all of us. Not only I think with regards to the topic that we've discussed today, but for all the many other things that we are managing in our day-to-day. There are so many challenges every morning and every new week, as we all know. So we need this support. So maybe sometime we'll have Yoda coming in and actually helping us. That's it for today. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.